With the arrival of Resident Evil 9 and the return of Leon Kennedy back in action, excitement for the franchise is at an all-time high. Fans all over the world are eagerly waiting to see what Capcom has in store next, and honestly, it's easy to understand why. Over the past several years, Capcom has delivered some truly incredible Resident Evil games that have completely revived the franchise. Now, of course, not everything has been perfect. Resident Evil 3 Remake didn't quite live up to expectations for many fans. It felt rushed, shorter than it should have been, and lacked some key content from the original. But despite that one misstep, Capcom quickly redeemed itself in a massive way. When Resident Evil 4 Remake was released, it exceeded almost everyone's expectations. The game wasn't just a simple remake, it was a complete reimagining that respected the original while modernizing everything from combat to storytelling. It became hugely popular, sold extremely well, and was praised by both fans and critics alike. That success proved one thing very clearly. Capcom absolutely knows what it's doing with Resident Evil remakes. And that brings us to an important question. Which Resident Evil game truly deserves a remake? Next, when you look at the series as a whole, there's one title that has been missing for far too long. A game that many fans consider essential to the Resident Evil storyline. That game is Resident Evil Code Veronica. Code Veronica is one of the most important yet underrated entries in the entire franchise. Unlike some of the numbered titles, this game plays a massive role in the overall story, especially when it comes to Albert Wesker and the deeper Umbrella conspiracy. Yet, despite its importance, it has never received a proper modern remake. Capcom has already teased more remakes. This isn't just fan speculation either. About a year and a half ago, Capcom officially confirmed that more Resident Evil remakes are coming. This confirmation came directly from the director of the Resident Evil 4 remake, Yasuhito Shiomi, who openly stated that Capcom plans to continue remaking classic entries in the series. So far, Capcom has released 3 major remakes: Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 3, Resident Evil 4. All 3 of these games performed extremely well commercially, with Resident Evil 4 Remake standing out as a massive success. This track record alone makes it very clear that Capcom has no intention of stopping anytime soon. The real mystery isn't if more remakes are coming, it's which one comes next. Why Code Veronica makes the most sense. When you connect the dots, Code Veronica feels like the most logical next step. One major reason for this is Albert Wesker. Every recent remake has been slowly building toward Wesker's larger role in the story. He's essentially the mastermind behind much of the destruction and chaos in the Resident Evil universe. And Code Veronica is the game where Wesker truly steps into the spotlight as a major antagonist. This game deepens his character, expands his motivations, and sets the foundation for everything that follows in later entries. Without Code Veronica, the overall storyline feels incomplete, especially for newer players who are only experiencing the series through the remakes. In many ways, Code Veronica is destined to be remade. Leaks and rumors fueling the hype, adding even more fuel to the fire. A very well-known and reliable Resident Evil leaker, someone with a strong track record when it comes to Capcom projects, recently claimed that Resident Evil 0 and Code Veronica are both currently in development. Now, as always, leaks should be taken with caution. Nothing is officially confirmed yet, but this particular leaker has been right multiple times in the past, especially when it comes to Resident Evil remakes. If this information turns out to be true, it would mean that Capcom is not only continuing its remake strategy, but also carefully rebuilding the Resident Evil timeline in a way that makes sense for modern audiences. What this means for the future of Resident Evil. If Capcom releases a Code Veronica remake, it would perfectly bridge the gap between the classic games and the newer entries like Resident Evil 9. It would also give fans a fully modernized version of a game that many people never got to experience properly due to outdated controls and visuals. More importantly, it would finally give Albert Wesker the spotlight he deserves in the remake timeline, setting up future stories in a much stronger and more coherent way. At this point, all signs seem to point toward Code Veronica being the next big remake. Whether it's announced soon or later down the line, it feels less like a question of if and more like when.